Close your eyes and imagine stepping into a world where surviving until dawn was never guaranteed. Welcome to medieval Europe, where winter nights tested human endurance in ways that would break most modern spirits. Tonight, we explore the remarkable resilience of ordinary people who faced extraordinary challenges with nothing but ingenuity and determination. Picture yourself awakening in the depths of a 14th century winter. The year is somewhere around 1340, and you're nestled in what medieval folks generously called a home. Your dwelling consists of a single room constructed from interwoven branches, carefully plastered with mud, straw, and yes, animal dung. This isn't primitive architecture, it's survival engineering. The walls around you measure perhaps 12 feet by 15 feet, housing not just your family of 6, but also your most valuable possessions: 2 goats, several chickens, and a precious pig. The animals aren't pets sharing your space out of affection. They're living furnaces, each breath contributing vital warmth to your frigid sanctuary. Above your head stretches a thatched roof, once golden and fresh, now darkened by smoke and sagging under winter's weight. Gaps between the thatch allow cold drafts to snake through, carrying with them the bite of frost and the promise of snow. Your floor consists of packed earth, sometimes softened with scattered rushes or straw, creating a carpet that crackles underfoot. No glass graces your single window opening. That luxury belongs to monasteries and manor houses. Instead, a piece of oiled cloth or scraped animal hide blocks the worst of the wind while allowing precious daylight to filter through. When darkness falls, this opening becomes a portal for bitter cold to pour into your home like an unwelcome guest. Your bed, if it deserves such a grand name, consists of a wooden frame filled with straw, hay, or dried bracken. The mattress shifts and rustles with every movement, and the straw has long since flattened into an uncomfortable mass that offers little cushioning against the hardboards beneath. Above you lies your most treasured possession, a wool blanket, rough woven and heavy with the accumulated grime of months without washing. Sleep comes fitfully on nights like these. The cold creeps through every crack and crevice, finding its way beneath your blanket, through your clothes, into your very bones. Outside, the wind howls like a hungry wolf, and inside, the fire in your central hearth struggles against the drafts that threaten to extinguish its precious warmth. This is your reality. A world where warmth is currency, where every degree of heat must be earned and guarded jealously. Yet somehow, against all odds, you and millions like you will survive until spring returns. The question isn't whether you'll endure, it's how these remarkable people manage to transform mere survival into an art form. Your family huddles together in the pre-dawn darkness, breath visible in small clouds, listening to the symphony of winter, creaking timbers, restless animals, and the eternal whistle of wind through thatch. Soon someone must rise to tend the fire, to begin another day in humanity's ongoing battle against the cold. But first you must understand the weapons medieval peasants wielded in this war, tools not of metal or wood, but of wisdom, cooperation, and an unbreakable determination to see another sunrise. Their strategies for survival were born from necessity, refined through generations, and passed down as sacred knowledge more valuable than gold. As we journey deeper into their world, you'll discover that these people weren't merely enduring winter's cruelty. They were mastering it, one cold night at a time, creating techniques so effective that some remain relevant even today. The story of their survival begins with the simple recognition that in medieval winter, everything becomes a resource. From body heat to animal warmth, from shared meals to communal sleeping arrangements. Nothing was wasted because waste meant death. Tonight, we honor their memory by understanding their methods, their struggles, and their triumphs. These were humanity's true heroes. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply to live another day. The medieval peasant's day began before sunrise with the most crucial task of survival, coaxing life back into the dying embers of last night's fire. This wasn't simply about comfort, it was about continuing to exist. Without that flame, The cold would claim its victims before the morning light could offer its weak reprieve. Fire banking became an essential skill passed down through generations like a sacred ritual. Before retiring, families would carefully bury their glowing coals beneath a protective mound of ash, creating an insulated pocket that preserved heat through the long dark hours. The technique required precision. Too little ash and the embers would die, too much and they would suffoce. When dawn arrived, usually announced by the distant tolling of church bells, someone would gently uncover these precious coals and nurse them back to flame using dry kindling saved specifically for this purpose. Tinder was treasure scraps of char cloth, birch bark, or dried fungi stored in waterproof containers made from animal bladders or clay pots. Clothing represented another battlefield in the war against cold. Medieval peasants practiced what modern outdoor enthusiasts would recognize as strategic layering. The base layer consists of a rough linen shirt or chemise worn next to the skin. Over this went a woolen tunic, followed by additional tunics if available, and finally a thick woolen cloak or mantle that could double as a blanket. These garments weren't changed or washed frequently during winter months. The accumulated oils from skin, combined with embedded dirt and grime, actually improved the clothing's insulating properties by filling gaps in the weave. What might appear as poor hygiene was actually practical thermal engineering, a protective layer that trapped warm air close to the body. Footwear posed particular challenges. Leather boots were luxury items beyond most peasants' reach. Instead, they wrapped their feet in wool or linen strips, then inserted them into wooden clogs or simple leather slippers. On extremely cold days, they might stuff their footwear with straw, wool scraps, or even moss for additional insulation. Medieval families understood that survival depended on sharing resources, particularly body heat. Parents slept with children sandwiched between them. Elderly grandparents occupied the warmest spots closest to the fire, and everyone huddled together under whatever coverings they possessed. Personal space was a luxury they couldn't afford. Beds themselves were communal affairs. The entire family might share a single large mattress made from a canvas sack stuffed with straw, dried grass, or bracken. Fresh straw was added periodically, but completely changing the bedding happened only a few times per year. The decomposing plant matter actually generated small amounts of heat through bacterial activity, contributing to the bed's warmth. Household animals played vital roles in these survival strategies. Cattle, goats, sheep, pigs, and poultry weren't just sources of food and materials, they were living heaters. A mature cow could raise the temperature of a small dwelling by several degrees through body heat and respiration. The larger animals were positioned near the family's sleeping area, while chickens roosted in rafters or corners. The shared living arrangement came with obvious disadvantages. The smell was overwhelming by modern standards. Unwashed human bodies, animal waste, decomposing straw, smoke from the fire, and whatever food was cooking all combined into a potent aromatic cocktail. But medieval noses adapted, and residents developed selective attention that allowed them to focus on warmth rather than odor. Nutrition also played a crucial role in cold weather survival. Medieval peasants understood that their bodies needed fuel to generate internal heat. Evening meals were deliberately heavy and rich when ingredients allowed thick porridge made from oats or barley, enhanced with whatever fat could be spared from cooking or preserved from autumn slaughter. Root vegetables stored in cellars or buried in outdoor clamps provided essential calories through the winter months. Turnips, parsnips, and onions might not sound appetizing to modern palates, but they represented life-sustaining nutrition when fresh food became scarce. These were supplemented by preserved fish, salted meat, and fermented dairy products when available. The medieval peasants' battle against winter wasn't won through technology or wealth, but through community cooperation, accumulated wisdom, and an unshakable determination to see spring return once again. As winter's grip tightened and night descended early over medieval Europe, peasant families developed sophisticated strategies that went far beyond simply enduring the cold. These people became masters of thermal management. understanding principles of heat conservation that modern survival experts would admire. One ingenious technique involved heated stones, a simple but effective method of warming beds and bodies. Before retiring, family members would select flat, smooth stones and place them directly into the fire's coals, using wooden tongs or wrapped in thick cloth. These stones were carefully retrieved once they reached optimal temperature, hot enough to radiate warmth for hours, but not so hot as to cause burns. The heated stones were then wrapped in woolen rags or placed inside clay pots, creating medieval heating pads that could be tucked under blankets or positioned at the foot of beds. A properly prepared stone could provide comforting warmth for 6 to 8 hours, often lasting until dawn when the fire needed to be rebuilt. Community cooperation represented another vital survival strategy. Villages developed informal networks of mutual aid that literally meant the difference between life and death during brutal winters. Families took turns checking on elderly or vulnerable neighbors, ensuring that fires hadn't died and that everyone had adequate food and warmth. When individual households faced crises, a collapsed roof, exhausted fuel supplies, or serious illness, the entire community mobilized. Neighbors shared precious firewood, offered shelter, and pooled food resources. Children were particularly valued during these communal efforts, serving as messengers between households and helping to transport supplies through snow and ice. Medieval peasants also understood the psychological aspects of survival. Long winter nights could drive people to despair, especially when hunger gnawed at empty bellies and cold penetrated every defense. To combat this mental challenge, communities organized storytelling gatherings, simple musical performances, and religious observances that brought people together despite the harsh conditions. These gatherings served multiple purposes beyond entertainment. Shared body heat from assembled groups helped warm whatever space hosted the event, whether a larger home, a village hall, or even a barn. The social interaction provided emotional support that helped community members endure isolation and hardship. Prayer and religious faith played enormous roles in medieval winter survival, not just as spiritual comfort, but as organizing principles for community action. Churches became centers of practical aid as well as worship, with clergy coordinating relief efforts and ensuring that the most vulnerable received assistance. The medieval calendar itself reflected the harsh realities of winter survival. Religious feast days were strategically distributed throughout the coldest months, providing opportunities for communities to share precious food supplies and gather for mutual warmth. These celebrations weren't luxurious affairs, but they offered hope and social connection when both were desperately needed. Medieval peasants also developed remarkable techniques for preserving heat within their dwellings. They stuffed gaps between wall timbers with moss, clay, and animal hair, creating primitive but effective insulation. Thick hangings made from wool or linen were suspended around sleeping areas, creating smaller, more easily heated spaces within larger rooms. Some families constructed temporary winter shelters within their existing homes, essentially building a smaller, more insulated room inside the main dwelling. These structures, made from wooden frames covered with woolen cloth or animal hides, could be heated more efficiently than the entire house. The medieval understanding of nutrition during cold weather was surprisingly sophisticated. They recognized that their bodies needed additional calories to maintain warmth, so winter diets emphasized fats and hearty carbohydrates when available. Preserved meats, stored grains, and fermented foods provided essential nutrients during months when fresh options disappeared. Root cellars and food storage became critical technologies. These underground chambers, lined with stones and covered with earth, maintained relatively stable temperatures that prevented stored vegetables from freezing, while keeping them cool enough to avoid spoilage. Proper food storage could extend a family's supplies through the harshest months, making the difference between survival and starvation. Medieval peasants didn't simply endure winter, they developed comprehensive systems that addressed every aspect of cold weather survival, from physical warmth to psychological resilience. from individual preparation to community cooperation. As we reach the final chapter of our journey into medieval winter survival, we discover perhaps the most remarkable aspect of these people's endurance, their ability to find meaning, hope, and even joy in the midst of unimaginable hardship. This wasn't merely survival, it was the triumph of human spirit over impossible circumstances. Medieval peasants understood that surviving winter required more than just physical preparation. They developed sophisticated techniques for managing the psychological challenges of months spent in cold, dark, confined spaces with limited food and constant discomfort. These mental survival strategies were as crucial as any material preparation. Seasonal work rhythms helped families cope with winter's restrictions. During the coldest months, when outdoor labor became impossible, households turned to indoor activities that served both practical and psychological purposes. Women spun wool and flax into thread, wove cloth, and mended clothing. Men carved wooden tools, repaired household implements, and crafted items that would be needed when spring returned. These activities weren't just busy work, they represented investment in the future, tangible proof that winter would end and normal life would resume. The rhythmic nature of spinning, weaving, and carving also provided meditative comfort during long, dark evenings, when anxiety about survival could overwhelm even the strongest spirits. Medieval families developed elaborate systems of sleep rotation that ensured continuous fire monitoring throughout the night. Adults and older children took turns staying awake to tend the hearth, add fuel, and watch for dangerous sparks that could ignite thatch roofing or straw bedding. These sentinel duties were shared responsibilities that reinforced community bonds and family cooperation. The rotation system also addressed another crucial survival need: maintaining circulation and preventing frostbite during the coldest parts of the night. Those on fire duty would move around, warming their extremities and ensuring blood flow continued to hands and feet. They might also check on children and elderly family members, ensuring that everyone remained warm enough to avoid hypothermia. Personal hygiene, while minimal by modern standards, played important roles in winter survival. Families shared warm water for washing faces and hands when possible, understanding that cleanliness helped prevent infections that could prove fatal in weakened winter conditions. Hair was kept braided or bound to prevent lice infestations that could worsen in close quarters. Medieval peasants also developed remarkable techniques for breath management during the coldest nights. They learned to breathe slowly and steadily, warming incoming air in their nasal passages rather than taking deep mouth breaths that could shock their systems with frigid air. Some families even created simple face coverings from cloth scraps that helped pre-warm the air they breathed. Water management became another critical survival skill. Families learned to position water containers near the fire to prevent complete freezing while keeping them far enough away to avoid evaporation. They understood that staying hydrated was essential for maintaining body temperature, even when liquid water required careful rationing. Perhaps most remarkably, medieval winter survival fostered deep appreciation for simple pleasures that modern people often take for granted. A warm meal shared by firelight became a celebration. A night when everyone stayed warm became a victory worth remembering. The first signs of spring, longer days, warmer temperatures. Budding plants represented triumph over forces that had tried to destroy them. These people understood that survival wasn't just about individual endurance, but about preserving their communities, their knowledge, and their hope for better times. They passed down survival techniques through generations, not just as practical skills, but as cultural treasures that connected them to their ancestors and ensured their descendants would have the tools needed to face future challenges. As winter finally released its grip and spring returned to medieval Europe, survivors emerged from their months of struggle changed but unbroken. They had faced the worst that nature could offer and prevailed through intelligence, cooperation, and unshakable determination to continue living. Their legacy reminds us that human beings possess remarkable capacity for adaptation and endurance when faced with seemingly impossible circumstances. These medieval peasants weren't just surviving winter, they were proving that ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when they refuse to give up hope. Tonight, as you rest in warmth and comfort, remember these quiet heroes who battled cold and darkness with nothing but their wits, their communities, and their unbreakable will to see another dawn. They survived so that we could thrive.